Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast. Our primary objective is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never quit. The reality of life is simple. We all fall. We all fail. At times, we get knocked down. The question is, do we get back up? Are we stronger? Are we better prepared to attain the maximum of our potential? Thank you for joining our No Quit tribe. As you go for your greatness today, never quit. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. Welcome to episode number 250 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is disconnect to reconnect. Our quote of the day comes to us from Arianna Huffington. Disconnecting from our technology to reconnect with ourselves is absolutely essential for wisdom. After reading our guest's new book a couple of months ago, I knew I had to get her on the show. I love what she stands for, and Tiffany Shlain definitely delivers some value bombs. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Tiffany, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Nice to be here.
I appreciate it. So the first question we ask everybody is, are you ready to bring it today?
Always, yes, 150%.
Only way to be. So the number one objective of our show is to both motivate and inspire our listeners to never give up. And I was curious if you have either a no-quit story yourself or perhaps a challenging time where you could have given up or given in, but you didn't.
Well, the first big thing I tried to do in my career, I completely failed at. I had done well making smaller films. When I tried to make my first feature films fresh out of college, I ran out of money. I had a creative block. I felt like a complete failure, like I let everyone down. And I slowly built myself back up. I had too much pride to kind of go back to my family after that period, but I stayed on my friends' couches and I slowly took smaller jobs and kind of worked my way out of that situation. But I think it was still one of the best lessons of my career. It taught me how to be humble. I know that what that felt like I could taste it like it was yesterday. And it makes me have a lot of empathy for anyone that tries anything. And it is a reminder that you have to think big, try big, and you might fail big, but at least you tried and you're going to learn a lot from that experience.
I love that. I think there's so much power and value in thinking big and trying big. And I talk quite often about is you want to aim big because even if you miss, you're going to be up there as opposed to having small goals and hitting them. So I'm glad you touched on that. Before we jump into your amazing book, which is why we actually and how we connected, wanted to ask if you wouldn't mind just telling our listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do today.
Yeah, my name's Tiffany Shlain, and I live in the Bay Area in California. And I am a filmmaker, and I founded the Webby Awards. So I've been immersed in the tech industry, and I actually make a lot of films about technology and creativity. And I've just written my first book, and it's been very exciting because I've been just loving the whole experience.
Before we jump into the book, could you quickly just tell our listeners what the Webby Awards are in case they don't know what they are?
Yeah, they honor the best of the web. They're considered the Oscars of the internet, and I founded it in my 20s, and it's still going on strong in New York. I sold it about 13 years ago, but it honors the world's best websites and happens in New York annually, and there's an International Academy of Digital Arts and Sciences, which I co-founded, which judges for it, and they do research, and it's a great organization to honor and propel the web forward.
That's awesome. I think it's so interesting because I did not know much about that until a few weeks ago when one of my guests who has also written a new book was briefly touching about that. So now I need to jump into your book, and I absolutely love the title and I love what it stands for. So I guess a selfish question for me is what got you to go ahead and actually write that book? Because 24/6 is just such a cool idea. So I wonder if you wouldn't mind kind of just touching on what the title is and more importantly, what made you think about going ahead and thinking about the book, but more importantly, go ahead and actually putting it into creation.
Yeah, well, for the early part of my career, I worked 24/7, like I think a lot of people do. And I was kind of veering towards burnout. And I had this moment, which I almost mentioned at the beginning, that when you said another moment, that was very difficult. But I had a moment in my life 10 years ago where I lost my father and my daughter was born within days. And it was one of these very dramatic moments where it was like, is this the way you want to be living? And I'd been feeling very distracted, mostly by the smartphone. And just like I was never really present wherever I was. I was in a constant state of nowhere because I was letting the phone and technology kind of dictate my presence. And so my family and I started turning off our screens from Friday night to Saturday night for what we call our technology Shabbats. And I should also mention my husband's a professor of robotics at UC Berkeley. Obviously, my background with the Webbys, we love technology. It was just feeling like too much, and it was taking away. So we have pretty much done that practice where we turn off screens one day a week, every week for the last 10 years. And it's been the most transformative experience. It's just, I feel so much more grounded, creative, productive, presence, connected. It's just helped my life in every way. And the longer I do it, the benefits continue to reveal themselves, and the benefits radiate out the other 6 days too. So the longer I was doing this practice of tech Shabbats, the more crazy everyone's become with the screens. So we were obviously early adopters with the tech. So we were probably feeling the effects of that earlier, but now it's like everywhere you look, people are staring at their screens all the time. So the longer we were doing it, the more urgent it felt that I needed to share this simple, free, thousands of year old practice, the concept of Shabbat or the Sabbath. I'm just updating for everyone and for the 21st century. And it felt more urgent to get this idea out. And I call it 24/6. So one day a week without any screens. And it will absolutely be the best thing you've ever done. It just like recalibrates your relationship to screens. It helps you just have a healthier relationship to it. And also it has this dual effect because every Friday night I can't wait to turn off the screens. And my whole family looks forward to it, even our teenage daughter, which most Bill can't believe. And then Saturday night, we're psyched to go back on, and you kind of reappreciate technology over again. So it has this dual effect every week that seems to put things back into check for me because I didn't like the way I was feeling with living 24/7. And I've just been on book tour, and everywhere I've gone, and I say, who feels like they're on the screens too much? Everyone's hands shoot up, every different age group, every different type of setting. It's like everyone feels this way. And my book 24/6 just really outlines how do you bring this into your life? How can it make your life better? And I go into a lot of neuroscience, psychology, the history of a day of rest. And then I also have proposals really for the tech industry where I come from on how to bring some sanity back to the way we're living.
I have to touch on something that you said early on in that last segment, because I don't know if our listeners fully understand it. But what Tiffany said is she has turned off her screen one day a week for the last 10 years, her family as well as her teenage daughter. So I need to just interject for a second, because I know so many people, and I'm guilty myself, of saying, well, I can't turn the phone off for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours straight. Yet you've done it for an entire day, 10 years in a row. And I think it's amazing. And I think that it's something that is so needed, not only in the world, but especially in our country, because if you look anywhere, whether it's morning, afternoon, evening, it's a restaurant, at a coffee shop, people are on their phone or on their gadget the entire time, just looking down, walking around. They have headphones on, they have earbuds in, and I think it's amazing how we've allowed this technology and this advancement to really take away from something that is, I think, put on this earth, and we created it to be a tool as opposed to hurting us. And I just absolutely love the concept and the idea, and I think it's such a great idea, because everybody knows what 24/7 is, and we all hear people say, well, I'm working 24/7, or I've been going 24/7 for the last 2 months nonstop, and I think it's amazing that you can do that. So I have to ask you just a very simple question for those people, including myself, who say, well, Tiffany, I could never do that. What's the best response to get somebody to realize that they can do it? And do you also recommend for some of those people that maybe find it really challenging to take a step into it, each step, kind of like you go into the cold water?
Yeah. Well, first I would say is that everyone can do this. I've been, and it is a framing, I think, in your mind, is that I think people are so scared like something's being taken away from them, but I promise you it's what you get back. And if you look at it that way, it's very different. It's like the first thing I would say to do is make a list of what you wish you had more time to do. Everybody's got that list. Literally bring out a piece of paper and a pen and write, what do you wish you had time for? Because the screen has taken away so much time, because we start doing something and then we get pulled away to the screen and we're not doing anything in a real meaningful way anymore. So write that list, and then I would just say fill that screen-free day with that. And in the book, I talk about how to convince your partner, your kids, your boss, because I think it's just all in a framing. Like if anyone that worked for me said, I need a day off so I can be really recharged and be the best that I can contribute here, who would say no to that? And I think that in terms of baby steps, some people, I went full in when I first did it, and it felt so good that I was like, oh my God, I have to do this every week. But I do on my website, I have like kind of weekly mini challenges if you want to do it in baby steps. And my website is 24, the numbers, and then sixlife.com. And I have these weekly challenges. But I guess what I would say to you is that it's been so long since anyone has been without their phone. And there's a couple simple little prep things you need to do, and literally like 5 to 10 minutes worth of things. But I promise you, it just feels so good to just think without being so influenced by everything around you and just be with yourself. And I just think we've forgotten what that's like. And as much as it's great to be connected and be plugged in, if we never are outside of it, we never have the perspective that we need. And I don't want this idea of a 24/7 culture to be inevitable, because it's not a healthy way to live. I think we are living right now in the result of people living the news cycles being 24/7, people being on and available 24/7. There's never any space to think and be without being connected to the network, and it's not healthy. And as someone that was early in with the web, I can tell you that moving forward, we all need to think very carefully about what it amplifies and what it amputates in our lives. Because I don't know one person right now that would say they don't feel distracted all the time. Or people read differently. I mean, I used to be able to read a book without problem. Now 10 pages in, I have to check something on the phone. Unless on Tech Shabbat, it's completely out of sight and out of mind. And it liberates you. I mean, it's very different when you say it's not negotiable and you're putting it away and you've done a little bit of prep, which of course I go into in the book, to make your day great, and it will be your favorite day of the week that you run towards every week.
Have you heard of the website or the Palm Box?
Is it to put your phone in, or is it the new Palm? I just was given the new Palm phone.
It's to put your phone in.
No, but I have to check it out. Is it? I'm really into it being because people have given me boxes, obviously, because I wrote the book, that were like see-through, and I'm like, I need to not see it. It's a visual thing. Is the Palm Box so you can't see it? Is it like?
I'm not sure. I had Neil Pasricha on, who wrote the book You Are Awesome, and he actually asked me right when I started the show. He said, have you heard of the Palm Box? Because he and I had a fascinating conversation about technology, and obviously he's pretty spot on with the same beliefs as you. So I have to go to your forward, which you ended, and in your book, which I thought was awesome, is to the power of unplugging and looking up. And it goes to the comment that you and I had a couple minutes ago, is whether you're in a city, whether you're not in a city, doesn't matter where you are, people are constantly walking around with their head down on their phone or tablet. And I just loved how you ended the forward as, looking up. And I think it's something that we all need to do. And you also said a word before that I thought was awesome, is recharging. And I think when we disconnect, whether it's an hour or an entire day, I think it's so natural to actually recharge and almost kind of take that break. And I think it's something that we all need to do. And I just love that 24/6 versus the 24/7.
Yeah, it's a whole different way to think about the world, that 24/7 shouldn't be the goal. And looking up, I think when I started the Webby Awards, what I was so excited about the web is that it would connect us with ideas and people in all these new ways. But what I never imagined is that it would disconnect us so completely from the people right in front of us and the ideas right in front of us because we're not paying attention. So I think the big question of our times is when to look up. When should we be in the network, and when do we need to look up what's really happening right in front of us, or a loved one that's right in front of us that's trying to get our attention, or like a moment you're missing because you're on your scroll? And when should you be online, and when should you just completely turn it off and be in your own body and in the world that you're in? And so my book really goes into some big picture ideas about the world we're living in and the world we want to live in. And, some stuff is regulation with government and tech companies, and some is just self-regulation on things you can do yourself that say, I'm taking my attention back. I'm taking my time back, and I'm going to have one day that I'm not overscheduled. I'm not responding to anyone. I'm not looking at scrolls and news feeds, and I'm just living in a different analog mode for one day a week. And it's going to bring a lot back to you.
I have a question that I'd like to follow up on. That is, there's been a lot in the media and all throughout social media about the importance of setting boundaries, whether it's business, personal, family, friends. And I know a lot of people that have put on, in essence, these times where they say, okay, I'll be checking email from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and then from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. and it gives people those boundaries. The question I have for you, similar to that, is do you think it's important, or do you subscribe to people being connected in certain time blocks, whether that's social media for business or pleasure, or being on their phone and the web? Do you subscribe to doing it at a certain time and putting yourself within those barriers where you say, okay, from 2 to 3 I'm going to do this, or from 4 to 5?
I have great respect when I see on email, like I'm only checking email at the beginning and the end of the day. I don't do it that way, but I know I wake up and I write. So I'm not on email. I wake up at 5. I think everyone needs, I think the first thing you're bringing up is beautiful, which is boundaries is what we're really talking about. Like the technology has removed so many boundaries. You can work from wherever but I think too much. And actually, I think we need some boundaries back. So my one day off of screens is a boundary. I think people that are saying I only check email from this time to this time is setting a boundary, because there's no boundaries right now. So if somebody writes to you, they expect a response right away. If someone texts you, they expect you to drop whatever you're doing and text them back. And one of the pieces of research that was very stunning to me when I was working on the book is that it takes around 20 minutes to get back into flow after you've been disrupted by a text notification or any notification. And that made me immediately turn every notification on my phone off, because all I'm doing all day is trying to get into flow writing or making a movie. And I needed to set a new boundary so the whole world isn't interrupting me all the time, and I create space for when I'm doing my creative writing. And then, of course, there's times where I'm fine and open and wanting to connect with people. But I found that it was just too much of the world having access to me every second with every notification and every stressful news headline. And I needed to create boundaries. So whatever people need to do, I think is good, because I think this pendulum has swung so far and there's absolutely no boundaries right now. Let's bring some back. And then we'll kind of figure out the right equilibrium to how to live in this world that's so connected and yet not lose this deep connection with ourselves and the people that we love that are right near us.
I love that. And I thought what you touched on, the 20 minutes, I read something probably about 6 months or a year ago that we get on average interrupted once every 3 minutes, and it takes between 18 and 23 minutes to get back on track. And those interruptions can literally be people coming to your office or home, a phone call, text message, social media notification. So I think that your point to that is spot on. And I think the whole boundaries concept and idea is such an interesting conversation. And I think it's something that I always question and wonder. I have 3 young kids, and I'm always trying to figure out what's the balance between too much, too little, the right amount, not a right amount. And I think it's important to get other people's perspectives. But one of the things we talk about is the importance of a morning routine, and you briefly touched on it before, but I wanted to ask you if you have a morning routine that you swear by.
I do, and I feel like I've just found in a couple hours that I didn't know that I had, because I also have kids, and I was just finding like I never had a moment to myself. So when I started working on this book, I'm like, where am I going to find this time? And I started going to bed when my youngest went to bed, which was like 8:39, probably 9. And I would get up at 5. So I was up 2 hours before my family woke up. So I had 2 hours to write. So I wake up, I don't look at my phone. That's another kind of newer thing I've started doing a couple years ago that's been pretty life-changing in the sense that I don't let the news frame my day, which is pretty stressful. I used to wake up and look at the New York Times app and get pretty stressed out. So I don't do that anymore. And I wake up at 5 and I go have my coffee and I write in my 5-minute journal, which is a very simple practice of just what you're grateful for, what would make today great. And then I start writing and I'm not looking at email. And I write for a couple hours and then the whole family wakes up and then the day starts. But I think the biggest change was not looking at my phone when I wake up. So I do still use it as an alarm clock, but it's on airplane mode and I don't take it off until I'm done writing. But I've been testing out all these different alarm clocks and I just bought an alarm clock that wakes you up with a scent and I'm trying it tonight. So I'll let you know how it goes. But because I don't want to wake my husband up because I get up so early. So I'm trying to find something besides my phone, which kind of vibrates quietly, which wakes me up. But I think the biggest secret sauce is that going to bed early and waking up early if you have young kids. Of course, that's if your kids don't wake up at 5. Because I've had a couple friends that are like, but my kids wake up at 5. I'm sorry. But my kids are, 10 and 16, so they sleep till 7. But I do swear by that if you need to have focused, quiet time.
No, I absolutely could not agree more. And I think having asked this question now to over 300 people over the last couple of years, I'm just fascinated by the answers. But so many people have spoken about the importance of starting the morning off on their own terms. And it's not the phone, and it's not TV, and it's not this. And some people have different ideas and things that they do. But the biggest common answer and the biggest common theme, just like you said, the secret sauce is it's getting to bed at a certain point and starting your morning off at a certain point. So I love that question because really the number one objective of it is to just make our listeners think about different things. And to your point, what I love is you didn't say I go to bed at 7 a.m. and I wake up at 1 a.m. or 7 p.m. and I wake up at 1 a.m. and I do all these hours. You have a schedule that works for you, but I think you're also trying, and you probably tried different things to figure out what your sweet spot is.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it changes as your situation changes, your kids get older. I think really revisiting, there's 168 hours in the week. And how many of them are you doing what you love? And of course, there's a lot of things you do just to be a partner or a parent or an employee. But, that's why when I say, what do you wish you had more time to do, which everyone's got that list. If you can carve out time of a screen-free day on the weekend, I call it Tech Shabbat. I do it from Friday night to Saturday night, but you can do it Sunday. And make sure, and have everyone in your life do that list. You'll suddenly have this beautiful day. And the other great thing when you turn off technology is time slows down. So if you do it on your weekend day, what's the one day you want to feel long is your day off. Yeah. So it's like this day feels so long and delicious, and it's, great to do with your kids. I mean, it's just, we just had one last, a couple days ago. It's the day when everybody at some point expresses in some different way how happy they are. And that does not happen during the week. But I was like, I'm so happy. I love you. This is so great. I feel so good. Those are the things that are said on our days without screens. So the other days is a constant negotiation of getting someone off the screen, right? I mean, that's what it is. Get off the screen. Let's get off the screens. Let's turn the screens off the table. I mean, I'm so sick of talking about how much fun to not talk about the screens for a whole day.
That is awesome. So for our listeners out there, I challenge you to turn your screen off for a little bit. Start with an hour and go from there. So need to ask you, for our listeners that want to find out more about you or get a copy of your new book, which again, I've read and I think it is awesome, what's the best way for them to connect, follow you, but also where can they find your book?
Sure. If you go to 24, the numbers 24, and then sixlife.com, so that's 246life.com, you can get the book. I'm on Twitter, Tiffany Shlain. There's no C in my last name. Instagram, Facebook, all those things. Pretty active on Twitter and Instagram. And I do a quarterly newsletter called Breakfast at Tiffany's that I've done for like over 20 years. So that you can find that all out on my site. And I'm so glad that you love the book. I've been so excited by the response. And it just, now so many people have been integrating it in their life. And even if it just makes them more intentional about technology, and then so much pleasure taking a day a week off, it just makes me so happy, because I think we're at this moment in our society with a lot of issues, and a lot of it stems at this constant state of distraction, and we need to bring some humanity back.
I love that, how you said it's constant state of distraction, and I think there's a quote, and I'm gonna butcher it here, but it's something along the lines: if you chase two rabbits, you're not going to be able to catch either one of them. And I think that's what happens with technology is like you said before, is people send you a message, whether it's a text message or an email or a social media response, and almost you're expected to respond immediately. And something you said before really hit me is you sit down and read, and then all of a sudden, a couple minutes into reading, even though you might be enjoying it, the reality is in your mind, you're thinking, oh, do I need to check my email, or should I check any messages? And that's not the way it should be. It should be the exact opposite. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to enjoy reading for the next 20 or 30 minutes. And, if anybody sends me a text message or something, I'll get to it later.
Yes. I think it's just about kind of rethinking how we're doing things. Like, is it better to try to be doing everything all at once, or is it better to actually do the thing you're doing? And of course, listen, I live in the real world. I'm a working mom. It's not like every day I've got digital perfection down, but I know this practice of one day a week off both is my favorite day of the week and my whole family's day. And then it recalibrates me the other 6 days, and it makes me more intentional with how I'm using it and what I'm doing, and kind of resets me each week. So in the book, I really talk a lot of practicality, how to integrate this into your life. And I think, I think this is really about how do we live well in this 24/7 world, because it's only going to get more so.
I couldn't agree more. So last question I have for you is, I wanted to ask if you have any parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners today.
Yeah. The average life expectancy is about 82 years, and that equals about 30,000 days. So that's not very much time if you think about it. And how do you want to spend your days? Because there's a great author, Annie Dillard, that says, how you spend your days is indeed how you spend your life. So it's the way that you're living. So to think, does this feel good the way I'm living? Having that phone distract me all the time, or do I want to be proactive to maybe do it a little differently?
That is awesome advice, and it's an absolutely perfect way to end today's podcast. So for our listeners out there, I highly recommend you not only following Tiffany, but also getting a copy of her book. And I challenge everybody to think about disconnecting for a bit. Tiffany, I absolutely loved you being here. Again, I've loved your book, and I look forward to hopefully connecting again soon.
Oh, so great to talk to you. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to episode number 250. Tiffany really touched upon some key things when it comes to disconnecting, and her new book, 24/6. Tiffany and her family have been participating in disconnecting from technology for 10 years now, and I was impressed by this, but I was also pleasantly surprised when she said that they look forward to it every single Friday night. As we wrap up today's episode, I have one question for you. Do you own and control your own technology, or does your technology control you? I challenge you today to think more about those people that are right in front of you. Focus on them and focus less on the phone that's in your hand. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.